commend this child's body to the ground.
This has been an unseasonably warm December. It snows, but it melts off in a few days or less. Fog everywhere. Thick fog, too. The nights have been so bad that we've had to limit our service area just after dark for about an hour. Central calls and tells me to pick up at a local supermarket. Roll up. There's an old lady there. Not quite as old as Marceline, but up there in the blue hair territory. I get out and help her load her groceries into the car. She waits politely as I load the groceries. I close the trunk and open the door for her to get in. She hands me her cane and slides into the front passenger seat. It's getting dark and I have to take her out of town, where the fog is very thick. I hand her her cane and shut the door. We get out onto the main route to her house and the fog begins to get thicker. I turn on the fog lights, but they do little more than to help me stay between the yellow and white lines, basically in my lane. Let's call her Vera. Vera leans forward onto the dash, squinting her eyes.
Lots of fog tonight,
she states as if she's trying to use some super seeing power. Yeah, it's been like this for a week now or so, I reply, slowing down as we come to a bend in the road. She leans back into her seat, I guess realizing she can't see through the fog like Superman or something.
You're a good driver. I'm glad you're going slow through this mess.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm doing my best.
I'm Vera, and you are?
David, but most people call me Dave when I'm not in trouble, I reply sarcastically. The fog is so thick now, I can just make out my lane and literally nothing more, maybe 4 feet in front of the car. Thankfully, the GPS I keep strapped to my dash helps me stay on the road headed toward her house. We arrive at her driveway. I almost drive into the ditch turning into it because I can't see where the road is at this point. We arrive at her driveway. We drive down what feels like a mile-long dirt road driveway until I see the floodlights on the barn next to her house. I help her get out. She insists on staying out here with me. I shrug it off. I unload the groceries to just inside her door. We have a policy about going inside people's houses. I put the milk and other heavy things on the counter for her and explain not to mention it or somebody's gonna call me by David. She laughs it off as I head towards the door. I open the door and her laughter stops immediately. I'm still facing her. I turn slowly to look out the door and find what stopped her laughing. I see a bunch of humanoid shapes standing around my car. The floodlights from the barn give the fog an eerie glow that really highlights these shapes. These shapes standing around my car move on, and more come along. I shut the door and she steps up to the window next to the door. She pulls back the curtain and waves her hand to tell me to come look. Dozens of them are walking by now, headed up her driveway toward the road. I see what looks like a wagon being pulled by a horse go right through my car like it isn't even there. The fog just moves around the car and reforms at the back bumper. She covers her mouth as we wait for the fog to dissipate. What feels like hours go by, but really it's only been 15 minutes. By now I've counted at least 30, including the wagon going by. The fog begins to sink into the ground and disappear as the night air becomes too cold for the fog to be so high. I reach for the door handle, but I notice that she's pretty rattled. Vera, it's fine. Just stay inside tonight.
I'll call my daughter. She'll come stay the night with me,
she says, stroking her chin and looking out the window still. I open the door and begin to head down her steps to my car. She comes to the door and peeks out. Be careful, David. I smile to her. Go call your daughter, Vera, and have a better night. I get into the car and I have a little bit of a freak out after she closes the door and turns on her kitchen lights. I sit back in my seat and breathe off the anxiety I'm having over this before recording the fare. Central asks what took so long, and I tell them that she's a chatty old lady. Who the fuck would believe me about the fog parade I just saw? On my way back into town, the fog is lower now, much easier to see. But I can still see their footsteps on the road, the way the fog is moving, like people walking through water. I slow down as I come up on them, but decide to drive through. Nothing happens, they keep walking, I drive on. I ask one of my buddies who's a local yokel, he knows about the area's history. He explains that Vera's land used to be a troop gathering point from when soldiers from this area left to serve in the Civil War. I ask why there, and he explains that her family used to feed and supply the troops leaving. End.